Hey everyone, Joy Brooks with Email and Coffee. Today I'm speaking with Vishrant, and we're going to let him tell us a little bit about himself. So why don't you take it away?
Well, my name's Vishrant. I've been Vishrant for 41 years now. It was a spiritual name that I took 41 years ago. It means relax. And I was given that name by a spiritual teacher because I wasn't relaxed. And it was something that I needed to learn. And that wasn't the full name. It was Prem Vishrant. Prem meaning love and Vishrant meaning relax or restful. So I had to find restful love in myself. That was the quest. And it took me a lot of years, but I found that eventually. And now I live Prem Vishrant. I live as restful love.
No, I find that life is humbling and it's always a journey. You can always trip over something, but if you've got your toolkit ready, you can pick yourself up and keep on going. But it takes a lot of practice. It really does.
I have an amazing tool in the toolkit for when I trip over. It's called acceptance of life as it is.
But you know something, I mean, you can attest to it and you can explain where you've been, but it's not easy. It really isn't because we as humans want to change things. We want to make sure it's just right. We feel guilty about stuff. We can't sleep. But I mean, there's so many things going on in our little pea brain heads that are constantly um, fomenting our own lives. We're our own worst enemies. And learning how to let it go, it sounds like, oh, just let it go. Oh, yeah, right. So tell us a little bit about your journey, how you became um, relaxed.
Well, it's a long talk, really. Um, I guess we could begin where I got lost at sea. I
Hmm.
was lost at sea in a small runabout, about 60 miles off the coast, and the boat had hit something in the water and it was sinking. We were down to the gunnels, and I was there with my partner who became my future wife because, needless to say, I survived it. And we were in the water for 18 hours, and the water was relatively cold, so we had pretty severe hypothermia, and we were being circled by sharks the whole time. And so I didn't think for a second that we were going to survive. We were 60 miles off the coast, being circled by sharks, and worse again, there was a cyclone hitting. And so the seas were extremely rough. Fortunately, I had a radio on the ceiling of the runabout, and I was able to contact different ships in the area, and they had been searching for us for 18 hours because I sent the first Mayday out uh, 18 hours before. Eventually, a ship came within 20 kilometres of us, or 20 miles of us, and I managed to give it a reverse compass reading, and we were rescued at 2 o'clock in the morning in heavy seas. And I was so exhausted, and the captain of the ship didn't want to help us because apparently our boat would have been wrecked against the side of his ship, and he would have been responsible. So I had to start the motors on the boat, and even though the boat was totally full of water, head the boat towards some nets that they'd dropped over the side of the ship. And I did, and my partner managed to jump off and get rescued by the crew of the boat. And by the time I left the steering wheel of the boat had drifted some 50 metres away from the ship, my boat, And I had to dive in the water and
Sure.
swim with the sharks, through the sharks, to, to the. I was so lucky to live, I tell you. I had to swim through the sharks. And this event changed my life a fair bit because we were rescued. We were rescued and we were taken back to Perth, West Australia. And it changed me something inside because during that event, I looked across at my partner who was in the water, in a life jacket, in the water, inside the boat, because the boat was full with water. And I was overcome with regret because when I looked at her, I realised that I'd cost her life because we weren't going to survive. This is before we found the ship. And in that regret, I was overwhelmed by this amazing love that I'd never experienced before in my life. And it was just so beautiful. It was just so amazing. And that set me on a new journey because when I got back to Perth, I wanted to find more of that love, which I knew had nothing to do with other human beings. It had to do with me experiencing something that was just magnificent. And so I went and spent 6 months in a retreat with a teacher. And I was looking for this love inside myself and I couldn't find it. And I realized that I was too armored because I was a businessman and I was a successful businessman. I owned a publishing company and I'd retired a few years before. But I was armored. In running a business, I'd put all this armor on to be successful. And this armor was now in the way of my perception of love. And so I wanted to find love. I wanted to find this beautiful experience again. And I didn't know how to find it. So when I finished the retreat, I came back to Australia because the retreat was in Italy. And I just decided then and there to give my companies to my staff and leave business behind because I could see that it was in the way of what I really wanted, which was heart, the love. And so I walked in, I gave my companies to my staff, including 14 offices of furniture, and I walked out, and I walked out pretty broke because I gave them everything. And then I took my shoes off and I walked around Australia for the next 4 years looking for my heart, which eventually I found because I became a nobody going nowhere. The big somebody that had been somewhere was in the way. His head was too big, wouldn't fit through a door because he'd been successful as a young person. And so I had to become less than. And I became a nobody going nowhere, and I felt so much freedom in that because I wasn't trying to prove anything to anybody anymore. And I found heart. I went back to university and I trained as a naturopath and a psychotherapist so I could be in service to human beings because when I found heart, I just wanted to help people. That was my story of finding heart, which was the most beautiful thing that I'd ever done. It was way better than being successful as a businessman. It was way better than making money. It was way better than anything. And it's not something we're taught at school. We're not taught how to find heart. We're taught how to be efficient little machines, but we're not taught about love. We're not really taught about anything but how to be successful. We're not taught about freedom. We're not really, not really. We're taught how to be efficient little machines. And I wanted to find my heart, and I wanted to live the way of the heart. And so I chose that as a way of living, the way of the heart, which is called the Noble Path in Buddhism. And for me, that meant serving humans. It could have meant serving the planet, it could have meant serving animals, but for me, it meant serving humans. Because I found that when I was in service of humans and helping them, I was very happy. And I loved that. I called it manageable happiness. And it wasn't something I was taught at school. It wasn't something my parents taught me. It was something I found because I went looking for it. And that's the seeker. The seeker goes looking for freedom, goes looking for heart. The seeker is a critical thinker. The seeker examines everything and doubts everything. Show me what's real. You know, I don't know. Show me. That's the seeker's mind. And that's very different because most people think they know. But a true seeker will say, show me, I don't know. And that sort of person will be shown. Once we think we know, we're too closed to be shown anything. That's why it's best to develop this beginner's mind that says, I don't know, show me.
You know, as a CEO, that is your job to know stuff. If you were to walk out in your staff and say, I don't know, they'd be like, and he's going to pay us? Well, he doesn't know anything. The point is that when you were up to your elbows in water, totally your life is no longer in your hands. And you're thinking, okay, this is it. And you're looking at your wife to be or your partner, and you're thinking, what have I done? What have I done to her? You know, what
Yeah.
And you release everything because there's nothing in your power anymore. It's not
No.
like, oh, let me make a phone call, I'll fix that. You make those Mayday calls, and now you're like, oh, please, I'm in someone else's hands. Totally.
Mm.
And
yeah, we're at the mercy of the ocean.
Yeah, we're not. We're taught to be self-sufficient, and that doesn't necessarily lend us to knowing who we are, because we start piling things onto ourselves. I'm this, I'm that, I'm this, I'm that, and you start thinking you know who you are. The answer is, I don't know who I am, and that's okay. I'm going to find out.
Yeah.
Every day, a little bit more.
Yeah.
I call it becoming. I'm like, I'm becoming.
Oh,
I
no.
don't know what I'm becoming, but I'm becoming.
I found that I had to strip myself down because I was too much.
Mm-hmm.
I was too big. I was my own hero, and I needed to become a nobody going nowhere. So in my travels around Australia, walking around Australia for 4 years, I used to wash people's dishes. I'd wash their cars. I'd mow their lawns. I'd garden their garden beds. I moved into service from a extremely highly paid job to little jobs that paid nothing or very little. Because I really realised that what I needed to do was open up. And as a businessman, I was too closed. Because I recognised that we find heart or love when we're open. When we're closed or defended, we don't. We miss it. And so I had to find a way to open up completely. And I did. But it took a lot of effort because I was really good at being closed while pretending to be open.
Well, you know, again, that is what we're taught. That is what we're taught. We're taught to fit into a particular mold. Although we think that we're going to school to learn a service. We're going to school to make money. You know,
Yeah.
we begin to dress ourselves up into all of these um, different, I don't know, we'll call them hats. You know, we put a hat on. I'm a husband, I'm a father, I'm a businessman, I'm successful. You start adding these names onto yourself. In the meantime, you those are not going to give you, for the most part, not necessarily going to give you that feeling of again, we'll call it heart, but let's talk a little bit about that heart, that love, because there are so many definitions of love over the past millennium. I don't know how many years, and every 1,000 years it changes or so. So, you know, what the Western world calls heart may or may not be what the Eastern world calls heart. We may not even have the same culture that's attempting to love or to be loved, and we don't have a definition of it. So go ahead and try to give me your definition of love.
Okay. So you got to remember that we have primal bonding. All human beings have primal bonding, which means we will be devoted to our partners, devoted to our children, devoted to our friends. But that's primal bonding. It's actually a program of the mind. It's not true love. It might look like love, but it's not love. It has attachment inside it and jealousy inside it. And true love does not have jealousy or attachment connected to it in any way. But most people mistake primal bonding for love. Real love is the most overwhelming beauty that we can imagine. It's just so delicious. And it's what motivated me to walk out on my companies, hand my companies to my staff, become a bum, and walk around Australia for 4 years looking for it. It was so beautiful. And in finding it, and now it's been a lot of years since I found it, I'm so happy about that. Because
Love is,
life without love is like living in a desert. And most people don't know they're living in a desert, but they probably have been living in a desert their whole life. And I had been. I was retired by the time I was 28 because I was successful, and I had this huge head, this huge ego that said, "Well, I'm wonderful because I've actually made it at the age of 28, had all the cars, the penthouses, the boats, you name it, I had it." But it was all rubbish. In compared to real love, it was like tinsel on a Christmas tree. It wasn't real.
what I was saying is that love is not an emotion. It's a state of being.
Yeah, it's not an emotion. I would agree with that. I don't actually know completely what it is. It's there. I perceive it. It's like I can say that I love you because I feel that. But trying to describe what it is, that's difficult.
It is. It's very difficult because we will say to our mothers or our fathers or our husbands or loved ones, my dog, whatever, I love you. And when you have that first breakup where you fall in love and then you lose that love, that's a killer. That that
Mm.
that rips people apart. Or you love someone and they pass away, your parents pass away. All of those are feelings. But the
Yeah, but they
truth,
have attachment in them, and true love doesn't have attachment in it. And it doesn't
that's the
have
thing.
jealousy in it either.
Something that I learned through grieving was that when all the grief was over, I forgave everyone, all the people that, those people that had passed away. I forgave them of everything that they've ever done. So I turned my my husband made, rest in peace, into a saint, which he was not. I turned him into a saint, and I forgave him of everything. I can still talk about him and say the time, think in my mind, the time that he did this, the bum. But there is this, there, there is this forever feeling that the relationship we had turned me into who I am today. Without that relationship, I would have been someone else. And all of these things, these little things, that's the love that I'm left with after all the grief is gone. There's still love. And it's not, oh, I love you, oh, I wish you were here, I miss you so much, I would hug you and kiss you and make love to you, blah, blah. It's not that. It's not that. Same thing with my parents. I think about all the times. And, these are people that have passed away. So basically what I'm saying is that love is, it's a peaceful state of mind where you aren't angry. I mean, you could say that you're happy, but it's none of those emotions. It is none of those
No.
emotions. It's very hard to explain. And I think that that's why you had to take your shoes off and walk across Australia and become a bum to find it. And the point is you
One of
felt
the
it.
reasons I did that is because everybody tried to help me out. Everyone thought that I'd gone broke and that I needed money because and they tried to finance me back into business. So I had to get away from all my old friends because they were trying to drag me back to where I didn't want to go, being a businessman. I knew what I wanted to do, and I had to get away from everyone I knew temporarily for 4 years to find my heart because I was being promoted and financed back into business and I didn't want to be.
I think in many cases, these experiences go back, to every monk that went into the desert, every wise man that ever left their home, went on a journey, every indigenous person that celebrates that walkabout that they do in their culture. I mean, these are things that are built into our human experiences for many thousands of years. We sort of forgot about them. And in doing that, we sort of lost ourselves and feel like we have to find our identity. It's like you did that walk. I'm sure that you realize at some point in time, it's been here all along. I just needed to throw stuff away to find it. Because like you said, you had armor. It was in here. It was, inside.
It was an undoing process rather than a building process, a reverse engineering process, if anything. Because all the programs that I had inside me were not programs that would support love. They were programs that would support success, financial success, but not love. And love is so beautiful.
Well, it really, it's hard to explain. It really is hard to explain. It's almost like that. It's almost like just saying the word and it's meaningless. It's meaningless because you can't explain it. And we try
Not
to,
really.
can't explain it. It's that feeling of, it's going to be okay when it's not okay at all. And some people would say that it's faith. They'll say, I have faith, or it's Jesus, or they'll call it different things, and it's okay, because the point of the matter is, it doesn't it is so hard for the human mind um, to grapple and to explain, and it's not something we can easily teach, and it's not something that you necessarily find within friends.
I
Um,
had to learn to support it. And the way that you support loving yourself is you don't contract, you don't close. And I had to learn to not close, which was a difficult task, really, because when we close, we cut ourselves off from the perception of love. And so I had to have a different attitude to life. Rather than seeing life as right, wrong, good, or bad, I started to see it as this is just what is. This is what is. And because I was seeing things as just what is, I wasn't contracting over life. I wasn't resisting life. I wasn't actually cutting myself off from the perception of love. But that whole attitude took years to develop. This attitude of not getting caught in right, wrong, good, and bad, rather than this is what is. This is what is. This is what is. Which is
so
a reasonably good statement because it doesn't take you into contraction.
right, how do you make if you say to yourself, this is what it is, and you need to make a decision, how do you, in a in this very accepting state of mind, how do you make a decision?
First of all, I don't live in my head. I don't procrastinate anything. I live in reality, and I just make decisions and I stand by them. I make the world happen. I'm in charge of a Buddhist society in West Australia, Perth, and I make it work because that's my job to make it work. Um, I make decisions
So you
from
do
the
make,
nothingness.
obviously, it seems like it's counterproductive, or that you see life as it is, but you're navigating through it. You're not just sitting there letting it happen around you.
People think that when you accept things, you can't change things. I can tell you right now that's not true. I accept life as it is. I accept people as they are. I accept situations as they are. I can still move to change from acceptance. The only difference is I'm moving from openness instead of closure, because when we're not accepting something, we're closed. And there's such a beauty in moving from openness because it allows you to perceive heart.
If you say, here you've got n- normal people, just like yourself. You have a wife, you have a family, you've got things going on around you. Sometimes it's stressful. Sometimes it's normally very stressful. And you're constantly having to navigate lots of things at once. And there are certain times when you just want to explode, right? So
No, I don't experience that and
that's
haven't
what I'm saying.
experienced that for about 30 years because I accept life as it is. I don't fight with life. I don't fight with God. I don't shake my fist and say you got it wrong. I'm in acceptance of life, and as a result of that, I have a very beautiful life where I don't have a tough life. Bad things can happen, but that's just life. That's
Right.
okay. Bad things can happen. So what? You know, every breath I take is a bonus anyway, because I should have died 35 years ago. So, you know,
Well, that's the point. A lot of people that have had trauma will say things like that because they realize.
mm,
But here's the thing. and I tell people this often, I'm like, you could be sad, you could be mad, you could be angry, you can, or any emotion you want. You could be very happy. You have to also understand that this too will pass.
Mm,
As
that's
you're
true.
very sad, it serves a purpose. You're thinking, oh, I've lost this, I missed that, I should have done this, whatever whatever it is that you're sad about, angry about, whatever it is. But there's a little lesson there to be learned. That's the emotion telling you what's going on. What is it that I'm upset about? It's going to happen again. So maybe I could teach myself something now so the next time it happens, either I can avert it or I can be a little, um, be better able to manage through it. So, my husband used to say to me when we were about to have an argument, he'd say, "Oh, here we go again." And I would laugh. I would laugh. At that point, that to me broke the tension. It made him more angry because yes, we're going to do the same thing over and over again because I haven't changed and you haven't changed. So how do we navigate this again and again, knowing who we are? Again, like you said, I'm not going to change anybody. I know what's going on in life. I think I married you because you're the person you are. You married me because of the way I am. That means when we butt heads, we're going to continuously butt heads because we're those two people. And that's going to happen again. So what do you tell your students to practice for real life confrontations?
The first thing is never be a victim of anything, because to be a victim of anything, you're blaming, and to be a victim, you have to volunteer to be a victim. And the moment you volunteer to be a victim and move to blame, you've started your own suffering. And I haven't been a victim of anything since I was about 19 years old. I refused to be a victim. I refused to move into that realm of poor me and you're wrong and I'm right. I like this is just what is and it's okay. Bad things happen, so what? That's life. The moment I turn myself into a victim, I hurt myself, and I won't do that. I won't do that for anyone or anything. No one can control me for me to turn myself into a victim. People can do bad things. People can say, terrible things about me, but so what? That's what is. I'm not going to be a victim of it. I'm not going to hurt myself. And I think that's one of the most important things we can learn as human beings is not to see ourselves as victims, not to live in a world where we're constantly blaming other people or situations for how we feel. I make myself feel. Nobody can make me feel but me.
Exactly.
And
Uh,
with that understanding, I can't be touched. I
in,
remain
in many
happy.
cases, in many cases, where humans do odd things, but because we like to hit each other's buttons occasionally, let's see if I can make them jump, type of a thing. Um, and that happens in many relationships. And it might happen because somebody's trying to maneuver you into a situation so that hierarchically they're above you, right? So they're going to try to maneuver you and they're going to hit a button. Oh, I'm going to win this argument because I'm going to make you do this. I'm going to make you cry. I'm going to make you feel stupid. Going to make
Yeah,
me
yeah,
all
yeah,
of these
yeah.
people do this
But
all
Joy,
the time.
we're talking about immaturity now.
Right.
And when I was 19, I looked in a mirror and I wanted to see a man looking back. And I realized that to be a man in this world, I couldn't be blaming other people for how I felt. I couldn't be a victim of anything. I had to actually own my own feelings and take responsibility for them. And I've been doing that ever since I was 19 because I embraced manhood. I didn't embrace immaturity. And I think we live in a world today where there's so much immaturity, it's not funny. And immature people hurt other people and they hurt themselves. And there's just not a requirement for it. We can actually take responsibility for ourselves that we make ourselves feel and stop blaming the world and other people for what's going on.
It's only when we can take responsibility for what we do that we can actually be to be of real service to someone else. Because
Yeah.
once we
Oh,
realize I'm responsible for what I do,
yep,
totally,
totally.
um, then I can attempt to fix, attempt to learn, attempt, right, to keep myself on the right path. And then
Mm.
it's almost other people will recognize that. So if I do the right thing as best as I could do, and I'm not saying the right thing is a judgment, perhaps I shouldn't use the term right, but if I take responsibility for myself and I attempt to do the best I can, right? I don't necessarily need to tell you, yo, dude, I'm trying to do the best I can. So can you do? If I just do that, if I pay attention to that, other people will recognize that.
Or
That's
they
when
won't.
everyone else takes
Or,
responsibility for themselves,
or they won't.
or
Joy.
they won't. And
So,
that's not my
yeah,
that's not
that,
my problem,
yeah, it's not your problem. Your problem
unfortunately.
is how you feel
Right.
completely because you're responsible for your feelings. And if you're hurting yourself because you're blaming other people or situations, that's you hurting you, not them hurting you. And this is one of the biggest lessons we can learn in this life, not to be a victim of anything ever, but
It's
to just see this is what is. This is what is. Neither good nor bad, nor right nor wrong. It's just what is. And let's have a nice life.
right. It's like
Yep.
go tell that to the person driving to work in the morning on the freeway when there's a pileup or a slowdown or he's late and somebody cuts him off and now there's a showdown,
Yep.
right? And you're a jerk and you're this and you're that and now that now people are getting out and punching. It's just like I I can attest to the fact that I get angry in a car when somebody acts stupid. I can
Yeah.
also attest to the fact that occasionally I've been the one acting stupid in the car.
Okay.
And I say to
I,
myself,
Joy, I
oh,
don't get angry. I don't get
right,
angry because to be angry, you've got to move to blame, and I just refuse to move to blame. Just categorically refuse to move to blame. Categorically refuse to support anger because, in my mind, anger is just another form of violence, and I don't want to be involved in violence.
but you get frustrated, right? You see
No,
frustration. No, no,
no, no. Look, if things aren't going my way, it's what is. If things are going my way, that's also what is. This is an attitude to life that brings peace, that brings joy, that brings love. The attitude to life where people are wrong or they're right, they're good or they're bad, that doesn't bring any joy. That doesn't bring any love. That brings you getting caught in a mind that is judgmental.
right. It is a loop because if you're saying I'm right and they're wrong, or then the option is that the next time if I'm right and they're wrong, at some point in time I'm going to be wrong. So the point, if we don't even say those things, it is going to happen where
Yep.
two people will confront each other. I'll say blue, they'll say black, and the truth of the matter is it's black, And if I don't say, you're right, it's black, right? And just be done with it and move on. Instead, I can't tell them that I think it's black when I know I said blue and I, have to keep face.
Yeah, I like telling the truth, but I've been in charge of people my whole life. And telling the truth is very important because when you're in charge of people and you lose their respect because you come across as a bullshitter, that doesn't work either. You've got to, you, the whole thing about being in charge or being the boss is you've got to have respect, otherwise it doesn't work. And if you are not respectable, if you, well, who's going to respect you?
But
Who's going to follow you? Who's going to do what you tell them to do?
so you've got little Johnny, your son, little Johnny. I'm pretending I'm creating a family now. Little Johnny, and little Johnny's 5 years old, 4 years old, and little Johnny's beginning to, he's he's beginning to, like, punch his boundaries a bit, right? And you're his father, and he's punching his boundaries. He's trying to figure out, can I push my old man around? And kids do this. Girls or boys, they do this. It's part of growing up. Like,
Yeah, I've
let's
raised three children. I do know.
right? And
Mm.
for parents who are bringing up kids, I mean, that's usually the first, and it could be when they're 3 years old. Well, the terrible twos, whatever it is. These things happen after they're lovely little babies that are so cute. They become people, little people with their own personalities. As parents, this is something that all of our societies having issues with right now. Many cultures are having problems with kids. How do you bring up children without anger, without frustration, without
Easy,
all of these things? How do you do it?
easy. You put boundaries in place and your consequences in place for negative behaviour. You don't beat children, that's out of the question. But you can put a boundary in. Nowadays, the boundaries can be, well, you can't play on the computer today, or you go and sit in the bathroom for an hour. Non-physical boundaries that don't hurt anyone. But if you don't teach your kids boundaries, you're not preparing them for life. Because if they don't learn boundaries at home or consequences at home, they end up getting in trouble with the police when they get into their teenage years. And so I think it's our job as parents to actually teach our kids the difference between right and wrong and the consequences of getting it wrong. If we don't do that, we're not behaving as good parents. And that's us failing our children. This whole idea of soft parenting where there's no consequences put in place for children, I think it's ridiculous. I think it's just going to destroy children because it doesn't prepare them
As
for the real
lost
world.
adults, it leaves. The point is, we have community. We can't live alone. We have community, and if we have community, we have to have. I know you used the term just now, right and wrong, and I know that there is no right and wrong, but there's a way we act in community.
Mm.
Things that we do, and they're beyond judgment. They're proper or they're not proper. You know, we don't smack people. We don't
No,
spit at people. There are things
no,
we don't do. We don't do.
yeah,
You don't expect somebody to do it to you, and you shouldn't be doing it to someone else. So there's proper
no,
ways of, I don't want to say civilized. The point is that it doesn't need to, we don't need to say it's in civilization. The point is that we have a community. We have proper rules for community, and children need to learn those rules so that
they
when they
do.
become adults, they know their boundaries.
Yep, absolutely. I homeschooled my children with my wife, and it was the most wonderful thing to do, to be able to be involved in their lives when they were supposed to be in school. They were in the house with us, and we'd be teaching them, and that was beautiful. I worked from home because I had a clinic off my house, and I just got to see my kids every day, all day long. I think the whole idea of sending them to school nowadays creates a bad environment inside of them because schools are full of bullies. And also, they get to be judged because they're competing with other students in academia and in sports. And, that's against the heart as well, which is another subject. But it's like, if I win and you lose and you get hurt by that loss, where's my heart? And so I won't compete with anyone unless everyone wins.
It's a competition, but it's a competition against yourself. You're saying to yourself, I want to reach another level. Not I want to be better than you. I want to inside.
Yeah, but
I'd
that's
like
not
to.
what people say. That they get the thrill of winning
Well,
because they, and
that
it's
is.
awful to see someone lose. It's awful.
I always had a problem. That was one of my big problems at school. That everyone was competing, and I was
Mm,
in an endurance race. So I was going to make it
mm,
to the end, and they were going to pummel me across the finish line.
mm.
Stamp all over me and get across the finish line, and then I'd pick myself up and then keep going like the turtle and the hare. I was a turtle, um, and that's the way I was all my life. So I'm not a competitor. I don't like sports. Um, I don't like watching sports. Uh, and there's a through line there that I catch that I'm like, okay, I understand why the only sport I ever liked was swimming
Mm.
and walking because there's no competition there. There can be competition in swimming, but I was always, I'm going to go out for a swim, and I would swim. I'd be like, oh, this is nice. I'm swimming or riding my bicycle, right? These are very simple um, and enjoyable activities. It wasn't, I never thought of it as a competition sport. In any
Mm.
case, so I agree with you with schools. Somehow, somewhere down the line, schools became an institution where a curriculum eventually was built with an administration around it and then multiplied out with bigger administrations. It became this big business. Where are the kids? Where are the kids
You
in
know,
all of this?
kids can get very damaged at school because they can end up with low self-worth as a result of not doing as well as other students. And it's rubbed in because the ones that win are rewarded and the ones that don't win are in a way being punished. And this is a terrible way to bring up children as far as I'm concerned. Bringing up a child to have low self-worth because they don't get good marks at school, that's terrible. It's going to affect them for their whole life.
And it
It's
does.
why I homeschooled my children.
It tends to on the public level, it tends to get ignored. So the um, the person that learns quick, that can memorize, that appears to be doing well, that does well in school, as opposed to the one that's slower, that doesn't, can't memorize, can't even sit in a, can't sit in a chair, no less
Mm.
memorize and learn anything. Those kids don't get to learn. And the point is that forgive me if I'm wrong for a lot of people who claim that they have ADHD. I don't believe in ADHD. I, I think it's made up stuff. I think we all have different, I'll use the term spectrum. I think that we all have attention, the ability to pay attention and focus at different levels. And that's because we're all different. So someone may be a heart surgeon, and someone may be a plumber, and somebody may be a painter, and someone may be, you know, a CEO. We all have different skill sets, which
Yeah.
our temperament is guiding, right? So if you're really good in languages, that's a skill set that you'll see play itself out in other ways. It's the way you think. If you could speak a number of different languages, odds are you think differently than someone else who doesn't speak a lot of different languages. I mean, it's obvious. That doesn't mean they're better.
Attention deficit disorder, ADHD, it's just the inability to concentrate for long periods of time. You can only concentrate for short periods. And I definitely had that at school. And so when I left school, I got involved in jobs that were really interesting, not repetitive. Like I first of all got involved with band booking, and I was managing heavy metal rock and roll bands and mixing their music and getting them to work and mixing their sound. And there were so many different things to do all the time that even if I did have ADHD, it didn't matter because I was very interested in what I was doing. And there was changing from this to this to this to this. And so I was never stuck in a repetitive position. When I went into publishing, it was the same. I had about 40 different magazines on the go. There was so much happening with 35 staff members all the time that there wasn't time. There wasn't time for ADHD to play its games. And so I think that people who are diagnosed with ADHD, whether it's real or not real, should get themselves jobs that are not repetitive, jobs that are interesting, and so they can be entertained by what they're doing, which is exactly what I did. And I don't know if I have ADHD or not. I don't seem to have any problems concentrating nowadays. I can stay with one thing forever. But when I was back in school, every report card read if Vincent, which was my name back then, could only concentrate a little more, he'd do so well. What a load of rubbish. I just didn't want to be there.
Those were my report cards. I had the same thing. Same thing.
Yeah.
Pays attention. Nah. I would also lose. I would lose patience at some point. I would become impatient because I'm so all over the place that I can't even control my emotions anymore. And this was when I was very young. And I look back at my report cards and I laugh. And I see how I have grown up and what I'm a process-oriented adult. So I create processes for myself. So I'm a list maker. If I'm working on a project, I'm making rules for myself. If I'm in a meeting and somebody tells me a project, we're going to be doing this, the first thing I want to know is what are the boundaries? So I'm asking all these questions. People think I'm out of my mind. Because when I walk away, I want to know.
You'd make a great seeker because seekers ask every question. They lift all the rocks to see what's under them.
That's right.
So yes, this is a good sign, not a bad sign.
Right. And I would always attempt to discover and uncover the negatives. So I wanted to know what we're not going to do. What would be the worst case scenario? All of those things. And people would say, oh, Joy, you're so negative. what are you doing? You're so negative. Because I want
Mm.
to know if I'm doing this project, what happens if this thing happens? Where do I go from there?
Mm.
Over time, I built, like I said, a bunch of processes in my mind where I know this is risky, and because I don't like to take too many risks, if I come up against this risk, this is not a bad risk. I've been there before, but this one is a showstopper.
Mm.
No, when I come up to this risk, got to turn the other way. This is not something I want to deal with. So I know these things about myself only because that's what I've done. But I recognized that what someone else, well, or what it was at some point in time, it was compulsive, that disorder where, what is it called? When people do specific things to get over being,
OCD.
yeah, OCD. Right. I realized I wasn't crazy about it, but I exhibited those behaviors. Because once I realized, oh, I'm uncomfortable, I would say to myself, oh, you're uncomfortable, and this is why. I didn't realize that that's what I was doing. I was doing it, right? And these are the things. This is the toolbox that, if we're honest with ourselves and if we're paying attention to what we're doing, instead of um, being irresponsible and blaming someone else. Oh, they made me angry. They made me uncomfortable. You say, no, I'm uncomfortable. Why am I uncomfortable? Is this a good uncomfort? Am I
This is great.
challenged?
What you're saying is great.
Right?
This is the
Am I
way.
challenged? Am I challenged because this is exciting, or am I challenged because I'm really afraid? Which
Mm.
which which kind of a challenge is this? And if it's I'm afraid, is it something that I want to, do I want to jump off the cliff? No, I don't want to jump off the cliff. Okay, don't. Move away. Move away from the cliff. If you do, some people like to. Some people really like to do those types of things. Fine.
Mm.
Not me. And
I
no.
used to be the type of guy that jump off the cliff.
Right?
Not
No, there are
anymore.
people like that.
Mm.
And again, this is why I say I'm always becoming. I always have to recognize in my life when I jump to judge someone else, like, oh, pull it back, pull it back. I know it's really easy to say, oh, they're doing this because, like, who cares why they're doing this? That's their problem. Let them do
I
this.
I have an attitude about it. I see people who are in the gutter who are begging, and I go there, but for the grace of God goes I. If I was programmed the same as those people, that's probably where I'd be as well. So why should I be judgmental about them? I just love them.
I I hear that too. I hear that too. Um, you know, uh, and so life is very peculiar. Life is very peculiar, right? It can surprise you at any point in time. Just because you think you're up, you could be down tomorrow, and you could be down for a long time. And you need that strength to ride out that down, one way or the other.
Well,
One way or the
that
other.
brings up another point. I don't support negative thinking. I don't necessarily support positive thinking either, but I definitely don't support negative thinking because negative thinking is the only thing that can sink a human being.
So when things when you make plans
Mm.
and it doesn't happen, and it doesn't happen in a really bad way.
Mm.
Um,
We have a
you,
saying in Australia,
yeah,
it's called shit happens.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
And,
Yeah.
and that's just how it is. Shit happens. So what? Falling apart over it, crying over it, being a victim of it does not work. It just makes you feel
It
bad.
might work for 10 minutes, but after that point, it's like, okay, now they've cried and screamed and beat my head against the wall. What's next? More crying and
Not even
screaming?
for
I
a
got a headache.
second. Not even for a second.
100%.
It's shit happens.
And it's, and the thing is, it's going to happen. It's going to happen to
Mm,
you. There's going
mm,
to, I do know people. I've often said this. You meet people, right? And there's lots of people in the world. And sometimes you meet somebody, they're just so lovely. They always seem to say the right thing. They're always smiling. They're just, I don't know. And you think, why am I not like that? What? And you want to say, oh, because they're probably stupid. They're too stupid to know. You're like, no, that's just the way they are. Or I've had
mm. Yeah,
conversations.
Joy,
Yeah,
Joy, I am like that, and I'm definitely stupid as well, mate.
I've had conversations with you have women have conversations with other women, and we talk about things, just personal things, to get to like, oh, this happened to me and my husband, or this happened to my mother and myself, and we have these conversations and we compare ourselves to other women, right? And I used to always think, why is it that that they like don't even know what I'm talking about? It's like they don't even, like, they're looking at me like, I don't know what you're talking about. And I think it's because I'm different from them. I perceive things differently, better, worse. That's not going to really make a difference. I got to figure out what it is about me that makes me think these things. They're not going to help me.
It's because you're
They don't.
different,
They
Joy.
don't understand. It's like, here's the other one. The and every man and woman will ever, whoever have been with each other closely, will say, a woman comes to a man, tells a man a story, a man wants to fix it, a woman just wants to talk about it. This is, these are this was something that I realized like day 2 of my marriage. And I realized I can't talk to my husband about these things because he's going to want to go fix it, and I don't want him to fix it. I mean, if I say to him, the faucet's broken, I want him to fix it. But if I say, so and so yelled at me at work today and blah, 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 I don't want him to go punch so and so in the face. That's not what I want. I just wanted to blab about it. And the point is, people around us, we can't expect other people to fix it. When you go to somebody else for advice, you need to learn to discern the answers all around you that happen all the time, that seem to be these synchronicities that are very odd, right? This morning I said to myself, I need to make a decision about this. Oh, who will I call? I'm thinking, who are you going to call? What? Ghostbusters? What do you mean, who are you going to call? Who's going to give you the answer to this question? The answer's in here and here. No one's going to give you the answer. Keep your eyes open for the answer. It's going to happen. That's how I do it now.
I had a little bit of a different attitude.
Okay.
I had mentors most of my life, and those mentors were way further ahead than me. And so I would go to them for advice, whether it was business or spiritual advice or whatever, relationship advice, but only because they were further ahead. I wouldn't bother talking to my peers about it. That would be a waste of time. That would be the lost talking to the lost. But I always was with people who were further ahead, and I respected them because they were further ahead, and I took their advice because they were further ahead. It's one of the reasons I was so successful in business, because I had great mentors and I did exactly what they said. I didn't play the know-it-all. I played the person who didn't know. Show me.
Mentors you were very lucky. Not everybody has mentors. Not everybody.
I went out and
I
found
think,
them.
yeah, I think that's something that is important. And something else that isn't taught, that's overlooked, is that we're so busy trying to make friends in our lives, drinking buddies, somebody, an attractive girl, so that when you go out with her, she attracts the guys, so that you can get, the boys come to, the boys come to meet her, and perhaps you'll get one of those boys, all of these different things that we do, but we don't look for mentors.
I did.
I know. Some
And
people
I
do.
found them at a very young age. I found them when I was in my teens. And they are only too happy to show me what they knew because they wanted to be able to share their knowledge, you know?
We there are many things that as this modern civilization we overlook.
Hmm.
Um, I, it's somehow so basic. These are basic things, but we overlook them because we're so tech oriented. You know,
Yeah, well,
we need a
when I was at
fix.
school, I didn't get to pick my teachers. You know, they were provided. But once I left school, I then could choose my own teachers. And I did. I chose people who were successful in whatever they were doing because people who are successful know the answers. I think that most of my school teachers were a bunch of losers anyway.
I had one or two. I had one or two. Not too many. One or two. So, Vishrant, as we're coming
Yeah.
to the hour or a little over the hour, um, where is the best place for people to find you on the internet? I'll put that information below, but tell people where they could find you.
If you type in the word Vishrant in the internet in Google, you'll find me. I'm all over the place. I've got something like 3,000 videos up on YouTube.
3001
And
after we put this one out.
yeah, one. And I'm also big on Facebook and TikTok and Instagram. Uh, just overnight, I think we had 40,000 views on one video.
There you go. What
Mm.
one thing, if you could share one thing with my audience, I know I'm putting you on the spot, one thing for them to go and do after they
Mm.
listen.
The one thing is the beginning of higher consciousness. Find a way to accept every part of you. Self-acceptance is the foundation for higher consciousness. It is the beginning. And unfortunately, we don't accept ourselves totally, and a lot of people suffer from low self-worth, which lets them down for the rest of their life. If you do one thing in this life, find a way to accept every single thing about you, physically and mentally, and everything you've done. Find a way. And that way, you'll have reasonable self-worth and you'll be able to love yourself.
I think that's a beautiful way to end this.
Mm.
Thanks so much for being with me.
It was lovely to be with you, Joy.
And that's a wrap.
Okay.